Three top London barristers, a 4-year-long court case, £46,000 worth of barrister fees, and over £105,000 worth of money in a bill to create documents to try and defend a government department who failed to follow their own policies for disability. That's what we're talking about here. This is why I featured yet again in all of the national newspapers where they've reported my current win of £17,280 from DWP. I'm hoping is going to be a lot more. Now, for me, this wasn't really about the money at all. It was about the fact that DWP failed to follow their own policies for disabled people, i.e. being myself, tried to cover it up. When I refused for that to happen, so I started grievances and then took legal action against them, then they made my life unbearable. They made it impossible for me to continue working there. And they sent me down the very dark road of depression. I was a GAD 7 level of depression, which is quite extreme. And all of that was DWP's management and their own doing, nothing else. So I have an awful lot to say about this, and I have an even more amount to say about the way the press are consistently reporting this. I've not been asked to my side of the story about this at all. I only had one message from a Sun newspaper a couple of weeks ago. I sent him a long message with loads of evidence and he didn't print a single sodding part of it. So I thought, well, do you know what? Maybe I will just say what I think about this. Now, when you look at the case online, it looks very trivial. Apparently, I won £17,000 just for a little comment that was made aligning me to be Stephen Hawkins or, etc., etc. Is very, very far from the truth. What actually happened was I took the legal action against DWP. I sued them 3 times over various different things. Now, the barrister and the judge have been very good at cherry picking some of the most important parts, I would say, of the case away, because they know that would mean DWP would have to pay me more money. At this point in time, all of that is an appeal. Now, I do not agree with what the judge has written up. I've said it before and I've said it again. That's why I've put it in appeal. I fail to see how any tribunal in our country can literally systematically state in a court of law that 9 highly experienced DWP managers, and we're talking top level managers, we're not talking like, people that receptionists, we're talking about people that make big decisions across a job centre and across claims, that have got lots and lots of experience. I was management myself. How these people failed to follow their own policy, not once, not twice, not 3 times, but consistently throughout my 2.5-year period of employment there. How that judge can then turn round and say that all they were trying to do was help me by failing to implement their disability trigger point policy, and that apparently I overreacted because I was too sensitive, because, I'm just too sensitive. I'm a sensitive person. And isn't this just the tale that gets told so many times about disabled people? Like, you don't have any rights because it's not about your rights. You're being too sensitive. And this is a big crux in my case. All I'm going to say is that I personally feel that the judge has very selective hearing, heard things in a certain way, and I would say she had very selective viewing. There are certain parts in the case, if you read it, she says there is no evidence that I worked for the fraud department. And in the evidence itself, if you look through my videos on the playlist there, you will see clearly an email, all the names are obviously blanked out, asking me to do certain things, etc., etc. That email was put in front of the judge. So to state that there is no evidence, that is clearly not true. But This is the problem we seem to have when a big public office does something wrong. Instead of holding their hands up and saying, oh my goodness me, we are so sorry, let's put that right for you, which is really what I would have wanted, because nobody wants to go through a 5-year long court battle. But they didn't, did they? And before I get into pulling apart the invoice, a £186,000 invoice that now the taxpayers are going to have to pay, by the way. So, you know, the taxpayer is paying for the Department of Work and Pensions for not following their own disability policies. And all of those 9 managers that were just only trying to help me have cost the Department of Work and Pensions £186,000. And I bet most of them are still employed there. So the first thing I get asked an awful lot is, how the hell did you do this, Ali? Even people that are law students, trainee solicitors, ask me this. Even qualified barristers now have asked me, how did I do this? How did I take on the beast? How did I put my case together? How did I win on the points that I've won? And how am I challenging the ones that I haven't? It comes down to 2 main things. Number 1 is knowing enough about how to evidence your health and your disability. My health journal is the place to start, but my course, Prove It, is really, if you want to prove disability and its effects beyond all reasonable doubt, so that your evidence, or the evidence that organisations hold about you, cannot be misused towards you, then make sure you've got Prove It. The second thing is Justice Writer Pro. So Justice Writer Pro is software that I created as I was really going through my case, and I was making it better and better and better as I went along. So Justice Writer Pro, when it first started, was very much just like a customized GBT. It's quite similar to ChatGPT, but it was customized. And then I started building in toolkits, etc., etc. I came across another popular creator on this platform that just seems to copy pretty much everything that I do, and I thought, yeah, I'm not okay with that. So I got Justice Writer Pro completely trademarked, and then I thought, do you know what, I'm going to take this to the next level. I'm going to help people do something that person will not do, and the reason why is because they're a barrister. So they want to use my ideas to, you know, get people to watch their channel, and then maybe charge them some of the extreme rates of pay that we see on this DWP's legal team's invoice to represent themselves. Well, if you don't have deep pockets, and I definitely do not have deep pockets to sue people that shouldn't need suing in the first place because they should be following their own policies, then Justice Writer Pro is probably going to help you out. So it's for litigants in person. It is for Mackenzie's friends, it's for trainee solicitors, it's for claimants, you know, anybody at all that wants to take legal action, doesn't know how to do it. It's incredibly affordable. It's £37 a month. I can't do it any cheaper than that, guys. And if you know of any disability experts, and when I say experts, I mean accredited, that want to advertise their legal services, I will consider them and put them inside Justice Writer Pro. So if you have anyone that you think is really worth their weight in gold and is really good, then let me know about it. Okay, let's get to DWP's invoice. How did they rack up such a huge amount of money? How was their legal bill so much? The first thing I'm going to say about their legal bill is that I noticed that DWP started taking legal action against me when I put my first grievance in. That is quite a telltale red flag there, like right away. And all I'm going to say to you guys is don't overlook your data subject access requests, okay? Because I did a data subject access request and that information wasn't in there. So that means that DWP are not complying with GDPR. What a surprise. Now, before I show you the next part, I'm just going to refresh your memory in case you haven't seen this piece of content or you haven't been following me for very long. So because I was my own case manager, paralegal, barrister, solicitor, everything, I self-represented. It was just me alone in the court against the court and DWP, who, by the way, treated the whole hearing like a day trip to the zoo, because they filled up the public gallery. All of the managers that I had raised formal complaints about were sitting in the gallery with their notebook, taking notes. And Jenny Nye must have changed her witness statement 13 times. Every single day that she arrived in court, we had another amendment to her witness statement. I mean, that her witness statement is a whole video in itself. Because why would somebody need to change their witness statement so many times? And by the way, she is that manager that refused to update HR over my health conditions, and she's the one that's had nearly 1 million views now on social media for refusing to do so. Fun fact, she's still employed by DWP for refusing to update HR about a disabled person's health condition. Shocking that, really, isn't it? Anyway, I digress. Sorry, I had to take that bad taste out of my mouth. Anyway, when I was cross-examining the managers from the Department of Work and Pensions in my hearing, there was one, she wasn't a manager, she was an employee, and she was called Josie Hooper. I can actually name all of the managers because there is an order of the court that says that their names will be listed, and I do not have to keep their names private. So when I cross-examined Josie Hooper, the first question I asked her, like I asked all of them, was, hello, thank you for giving evidence today. Can you confirm that you wrote this witness statement? And I would hold up their witness statement and they said, yes, I can confirm that I wrote that witness statement and that it is true to the best of my ability. So the minute she stated that, I took her to paragraph 8. Now, bearing in mind that I'd worked with all of these people, and bearing in mind I have a degree in English and applied linguistics, bearing in mind I've studied deeply how people speak, how people learn to read and write across different cultures and languages all over the world. Within reading 2 of these witness statements, I could see that they had been written by the same very hand, and I knew from the terminology and everything else that was being used that that was a legal person, and it most definitely wasn't any of these managers. No shade to any of them, but I don't think a single one of them possesses an A-level, let alone a degree. Josie Hooper is a very, decent-ish person, country bumpkin, got a very, Somerset accent, I believe. Anyway, I asked her to read the paragraph and she sat there in court and she was reading it, and I could see very, very clearly the wobble happening right before my eyes. This poor woman she was filled with dread. I could just see the dread flooding through her, in her face, in her body language. She was going redder and redder and redder as her head was down as she was reading this witness statement. By the way, it's not always what everybody says or doesn't say in a court of law, it's how they behave. And when I saw this, I went, oh dear. I knew that she knew that this was a complete charade. This witness statement that had been put in front of me and put in front of the court, I might add as well, was not written by her. But I didn't expect her to say this. I didn't expect her to say, I didn't write that. I didn't write that. And I said, I'm sorry, you have just taken an oath and you have stated that you wrote this witness statement. She goes, no, I did not write that. And the part that she was referring to was the part in the witness statement that was where she was referring to calling me names and saying certain things and making certain physical gestures towards me, being akin to Stephen Hawkins. Stay with me on this, because when I show you the invoice, there is a point to me telling you this. And it's a point I told to the court as well, which is why I will not be paying a £186,000 cost invoice. So I asked Miss Hooper, what exactly do you mean? Because you've told us all in this courtroom today that you've written this witness statement and it's yours. And she said, no, I had a phone call with DWP's legal team. They asked me questions, then they wrote the witness statements and I signed it. Really, at that point, I think the tribunal should have interjected and maybe they should have just stopped the hearing right there and then. Because if DWP's legal team have done that for one witness, who's to say that they've done the same thing for every single one? Well, in actual fact, I believe that's exactly what they did because I ran it through my linguistic software, such as this. Don't hate me for this. This is where my degree in applied linguistics really helped me. So basically, I proved here that those witness statements were all written by the same hand. And I went through every single witness statement and I fed it into my linguistic software, and it did really very much support my narrative. One thing it didn't support was the narrative that this was written by each and every individual witness. Bit of a problem that really, isn't it, in a witness statement? However, for this judge, wasn't really much of a problem. We'll see what the appeals court think about that. So, going back to the invoice from DWP's legal team, if their witnesses wrote the witness statements, which clearly they did, why then have they here allocated preparing witness statement 33 hours, but those 33 hours amount to £38,867. And then here, reviewing opponents' online content. That's right, the taxpayer is paying DWP's legal team to sit there in their office and watch my YouTube channel and my TikToks apparently. Let's see how much that has cost the taxpayer. £845.16. I can tell you that's a very moderate reduction because the amount of times they referred to my social media, I'm pretty sure they watched it for a lot more hours than they've invoiced there. But that would look really bad, wouldn't it, if they invoiced for more than they actually did on that count? Because of course it would make the whole thing seem a little bit dubious, wouldn't it? So there we have it, 181,000, 182 grand, and then obviously tax on top of that. All of that completely unnecessary had DWP have followed their own disability policies. And of course, let's not forget the elephant in the room. All of that was done in an attempt to silence me. Now, I'm not going to lie. I did have like a good few sleepless nights when I saw that invoice and thinking, are they for real? But this is what they try to do. First of all, they'll fire you, hoping that they will shame you into silence if you're disabled and you catch your employer out for not doing what they should have done. And then when you take legal action, they'll drag it out as long as possible, thinking that you won't have enough financial resources to continue paying for your legal help or your legal support or someone who's putting your paperwork together. Of course, you can do that with Justice Writer Pro. And then obviously, if you get past that, then they'll try and put the fear of God into you with some, quite frankly, ridiculous bill because, you know, the part with the witness statements in this case in particular, I mean, I had that removed completely because their own witness said that, you know, they're the ones that have written all of the witnesses. I mean, on that point alone, the whole case should really have just been struck out. Because if there is a single ounce of possibility that the witness statement that is before the court isn't from the witness, that it has been coached by a legal team or other, then that just tells you everything you need to know about the integrity and the truth of the evidence at hand, doesn't it? Tells you an awful lot. Now, I think if DWP's managers and their employees were all telling the truth, why would their legal team need to write all of the witness statements? I just wonder why. I think we all know the truth to that one. But at the end of the day, if DWP will do this to their own employees, someone who worked for them, someone who knows the system, imagine what they will try and do to somebody, a claimant that doesn't. And on that note, I've updated the sales page for Prove It, seeing as the newspapers want to print about it so much. And by the way, the Sun newspaper, I do not charge people £197 to get benefits. I charge a fee for a course that anybody who has a disability can take to learn how to evidence their disability against organisations like the DWP, bad employers, or even employment tribunals. And there we have it, guys. And you can go along and you can have a little look at it, and you can have a little look at Prove It and see if that is going to help you as much as it's helped me. And the Sun newspaper, next time one of your shady little reporters gets inside of my Facebook Messenger and refuses to print what I've actually stated, I might just start thinking about suing you next. So I'd be very careful about what you print about me. Okay, have a lovely day, everybody. I'm going to go and enjoy a very nice glass of Prosecco, and I'm going to see you in the next one.